Hey, what's your self-talk? Jahbari is here from What's Your Self-Talk podcast. And listen, I want you to download Anchor right now. Because chances are you're listening to this and you're saying, I got some things I want to share. I have some things that I've wanted to put in a podcast form. Here's the opportunity. Anchor is free. You can do it from your phone and you can be on all the different podcast stations all in one app. Okay. So what I need you to do is stop waiting for the perfect time, analysis paralysis. Do it now. You'll thank me later. What's your self-talk? Hey, what's your self-talk? This is Jahbari, your host, back with another great episode that I'm very excited about. So the goal for this podcast, if you're new, is to be able to challenge you and to bring you new ways to think and even action points that you should take in order to start bringing the potential that you have inside of you. So I have been at this journey for well over 5 years, and I'm excited to finally start to narrow down specifically how I am creating my own little niche as far as what's your self-talk and bringing forward ideas and things that's going to help you be able to expand your potential. So today's topic is going to be a topic that's going to be a lot of different episodes. So this is just going to be part one, and it's my solution to the poverty mindset. Now, before I get into that, one of the ways that I came across this is because me and my wife recorded a podcast about us and what we did to overcome that for ourselves. And so we went back and forth. You can listen to that more in detail. That was episode number 2. Yes, episode number 2. So you can go back and listen to that a little more detail. I'm not going to touch bases on that. But from that, we got some good questions from a good friend, which led to me going on Facebook and getting more questions around this. And so I'm going to dig into just kind of part one, and that way create more conversation and also give you some tools that I know that have helped me and that will definitely help you. So in order for us to ever be able to solve something, we need to understand the how. How did we get here? Even why did we get here? Because once you understand that, then you can understand what you don't want to go back to. And so if you have, so my question is if I want to solve my solution to the poverty mindset, I got to ask myself, well, for me, what makes me an expert on this? And I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I'm an expert of myself. And I think the goal for you is to be able to become an expert of yourself and see what triggers you, what encourages you, what makes you want to change, what makes you want to get better, and what discourages you, what doesn't make you want to get better. You need to know that more than anyone else because you can understand who you are and what you need to do. So why? For me, I am an African-American male, and I grew up in a community that was a lot of males. I blew up in a community that is a lot of just black males, black women, and so it was just an African-American community. So when I'm speaking, I'm going to speak specifically for myself in just even the black race, because those are the people that I grew up around, and that is the environment I am more familiar with. So therefore, that is the one that I can give more context to. And ultimately, that is the people that I definitely want to be able to help because I've seen some of the different struggles, and I actually experienced some of those struggles and still have to be able to, battle those things every single day. All right. So the solution to the poverty mindset for me is, for one, understanding that it's all about the environment. Now, think about this. When you're coming up as a kid, you pretty much don't have a choice what environment you come up in. But then you have to think about, if you're coming up in a certain environment, then that's how you're starting to understand how the world is. whether if it's right or wrong, that's just how you process the world. So for me, example was as I grew up, I was in an environment that, my dad loved sports. And first sport for me that many people don't know, I was a baseball player. I love baseball. I actually almost had the chance to be able to be part of the Little League World Series, but it was my very first sport. And so me playing sports, it was just something that I did in a passing. And it was also something that I did because I didn't want to be in trouble. Why? Because in my community and around the people I was in is if you wasn't playing sports, that means you're on a corner, you were doing drugs, you were doing something that was most likely illegal that would eventually get you in trouble, in jail, or killed. So that's generally what it looked like for me. So my mindset that started to develop was I needed to play sports so that I wouldn't use my pastime hanging around those people or being in that type of environment. And so sports just became something I did and I knew I needed to do, and I enjoyed it at the same time. So baseball was the very beginning of that. And as I just started to play sports, you start to look at life outside of sports. How is my house life? You really don't, I think when you're young, you really don't look at the financial aspect of life, but you do look at the quality of life you have. I mean, when I grew up, I looked at movies, I looked at TV shows, and you will see things like, Family Matter. You'll see things that people were having was a happy family, and you see mom and dad in the same household. You see people having having kids and, having these family dinners. Soul Food is a movie that comes to mind for me. That was a beautiful thing just to see Big Mama and just be able to see everybody at the family dinner every Sunday. So those are, big. As I started to value, it's like, man, family is important. And I wanted to be able to say, man, my parents were divorced. And so I used to go back and forth between my mom and dad. So that forced me to see things as it was uncomfortable always having to go to another school every 2 years. It was uncomfortable not being able to have that many friends because when you move a lot, it's kind of hard. It was uncomfortable to see my mom and dad always at each other's throat. It was uncomfortable seeing those things. And so how my mind worked was I was like, well, how can I not be able to experience some of these things? And I want you to take note because this was the environment I was raised in. So the environment I was raised in, I didn't have any control. I just had to take it as it came to me. And I had to be able to say, all right, how am I, what am I going to do? Am I going to repeat the same things I'm seeing? Because I see what the end results are. I see what leads to, unhappy marriage. I see what leads to being on the streets, selling drugs. I see these things. So when I see a lot of the outcomes that I really didn't like, then, as a kid, I believe you are trying to find solutions to get to be the hero. We look at movies at a young age and you cannot name, or to my mind right now, I cannot name any type of cartoon, movie, or anything that never shows that the good guy win. And so whether it's a good guy or it's a good girl, they always are wanting to win. They always do win, regardless of, how the plot is made. Maybe it's 2-3 different movies or shows or whatever. But at the end of the day, that person who was, hit a bump in the road eventually ended up winning. So that is created inside of me just coming up. You see all the bad, you just thinking, I think in my mind, well, some good got to come out of this. So that's what led me to sports. And so it led me to sports because for one, I wanted to stay away from the corner. And I wanted to stay away from drug dealers. And so sports become something I was real good at. I eventually made it over to football, and football came. I started seeing the people was able to be the hero for their family. They was able to buy their mom houses and cars and take care of their family. And so when you see those things, that it triggers something. And in me, it triggered, man, how can I be a hero? I want to be that hero that can take care of my mom, that take care of, my dad, that take care of my family and to be family. And so this was all created in a raised environment. Now, for you, it may came to you when you was in your raised environment that you didn't see life the exact same way. You probably seen those things and it probably was worse than my circumstance, or it probably was better than my circumstance. But whatever, the reason me telling you all that is because we all have what I call a raised environment, because that is how your poverty mindset was created. And in somewhat form or fashion, that's why it was created. And so I'll get into the why here in a minute, but we all have a how. So that was how my environment was created. And so it's important to notice that, because as you grow up in life, you will have certain triggers that's going to encourage you or that's going to discourage you. So remember what I was telling you at the beginning, that you have to understand the things that make you click and that does not make you click. That is your job. That is not nobody else. It's not your mom. It's not your dad. It's not your spouse. It's not your best friend. It's not your cousin and your uncle. It's your job to be able to identify that. And, next week I'm going to talk about self-awareness, because I'll dive into that a little bit more. But now I know how I got there. So why? Why was my environment that way? And as a Black male, what I've seen is that we have struggled just in a Black community with just psychology, and that's just the mind. So let me first break down the definition of the word psychology. So it is the scientific study of a human mind and how it functions, especially those affecting behavior in a given context. So in a given context, majority of the Black community that I grew up in was just basically living life to get by. That's it. I just need to pay this bill. I just need to make sure he has some clothes. I just need to make sure he can eat tonight. I need to make sure he can do this. I just need to make sure. And so that was the mindset of mom, dad, and basically everybody around me. And so spiritual was very strong, because when it was difficult for them to be able to do that, they was able to lean more on their spiritual strength to help them get through that, just making mentality. Now, I won't say this was for all, but this was for me. And this is what it looked like. And I think this is for a lot of the African-American culture, especially, me being now 32, when I was growing up, that is how a lot of people was growing up. And so understanding that's why I grew up in that environment, it wasn't much around me that shown that I see that, hey, you can own your own business, or you can be able to, you can be the president, or you can be a CEO, or you can be a doctor, or you can be, tons of different professions. Because in my environment that I came up with, it showed me that I can only be a few things. And it was either sports, or it was rap, or entertainment, I should say. And so for me, I obviously chose the sports side, and that mindset of me going there is because of how I was raised. Now, what I started to notice was a lot when I focused on sports, and I said, okay, football is going to be the game that's going to help me become that hero. And I never forget, I always tell a story about how I told my mom, you know what, Mom, I just seen them struggling financially so hard, and, they wanted me to go to college. I'm like, you know what, you don't ever have to worry about you paying for me to go to school. I'm going to get a D1 scholarship, and I'm going to pay my way through school. Now, I told her that because I was studying people who was able to be the hero, go to the NFL, and be able to take care of their family, because I knew in order to get to the NFL, I had to go to at least a D1 school in order to get one. And most of the time, D1 school was looking for good athletes, and they was going to give you a full ride scholarship. So without even understanding all the details and understand how to do that, my mind and energy was focused on that because of how I was raised. And so it went from my how to my why. Now my why, because of how I viewed my my raised environment, I now wanted to go into what I want you to start thinking of, and how what I did, I started going to create my environment. And so when I now create my environment, now what is fueling me is the raised environment that I went through, because I was raised a certain way that I was not a fan of. And so it made me focus on, I need to create a certain environment for me. And creating that certain environment and saying, okay, I'm going to stay focused on this specific goal. And whatever it takes, I'm going to make sure I hit this goal. And in this point, it was sports for me. And so I want to fast forward a little bit, because this is not about sports. I want to really talk about how I had to recreate my environment, because after, obviously, I played football, got to D1, and when that time was over for me, I had made a decision through a lot of praying, through talking to a lot of friends, that I was going to be finished playing sports. Now, this was very scary for me, because all my life I had dreamed about going to the NFL, right? Because my raised environment, I wanted to be that hero. And the way you would be that hero is you would go to the NFL, buy your mama a house, take care of your family. And that's what it looked like to me. So now a part of me, now fear is really creeping up. I'm like, okay, I just walked away from the one thing that I said that I was going to do. And I never forget when I walked away from football, I know it was the right decision. God had led me to that decision. However, I was still frightened and scared, because I was like, I'm supposed to go in the business world, but I don't know what that's going to look like. I have no idea. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. I didn't know anything about real estate. I didn't know anything about, being a speaker. None of those things was a thought for me. But I just kind of used my first mindset from creating my creative environment. I knew I had a calling in the business world. I've always had a passion to do business, just through something I seen in my raised environment. I had an uncle who was, he was struggling to start a business here, starting a business there. But in that raised environment, that gave me the small inspiration to be in the business field. So I had studied business. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so I just knew that was the direction I was going to go. But it was so difficult for me to get there. But I had to now create the environment. And this is now a new mindset for me. And this is where we go back to understanding what psychology is when you understand how your mind and how it functions when it is in a given context. Well, my given context at this point was I was walking away from football, and now I was going to now create a new environment that I was going to be in the business field. And now it was very important, because now I started listening to recordings. I started trying to find new people to be around who were very similar, as in that was either in the business field, who were entrepreneurs. And I'll never forget, the first job I got was in a bank. And the reason that I got a job in a bank, because I knew a lot of business people, businessmen and women, use banks to help fund their business. I learned that from school. So my mind instantly said, I need to work at a bank, because they are business people go to the bank to help run and operate their business. And so I was creating my environment, but I was thinking about what other things I needed to do to help me get further down that path. And so it was just a step by step. And so I worked at a bank for 2 years. And as I worked there, I realized my time was up. And then I started slowly asking myself, I'm staying on this path of being a business person. So the next move I have to make had to be business. So the next one for me was I wanted to be a manager, because any person who run a business, you have to understand how to manage it. So I went to assistant management job. That didn't work. And then I actually went to a sales job. And that was actually by accident because the job I was at the assistant manager, it just kind of went away. And I walked into a sales job. I was like, well, as an entrepreneur, as a business person, you have to be able to be good at sales. And I want you to understand that this created environment was something that I was learning along the way. But it was because I was focused on doing something specific. But every time I was kind of refine this created environment, it was something I was constantly working at. It was something I had to expose myself to and ask myself, okay, what am I going after? I'm still want to be a business person, but what does that look like? And how is this step going to help support that? And that's something I know I was always good at. I was always able to tie back the reason why I was doing something. And that may be a struggle for you. But for me, I knew that was a good strength and that was a gift of mine. I was always able to tie back why I am doing this specific thing. And even if I didn't even have aspiration, I just knew God was telling me to do it. OK, so that created environment is so key because I'm now asking myself, who are the people I need to be around? What are the action steps I need to take? What are the things I need to listen to? What are the things I need to read? And as you're thinking about this for yourself, I want you to think, how are you creating the environment for yourself to make to end that solution to overcome that poverty mindset? Because now I'm not really focusing on me having a poverty mindset. I'm just focusing on what are the things that I need to do in order to get to this end goal. And so I am doing that to help me get better at hitting my goal. So my solution at this point in my life now, as I'm going down this business journey, is overcoming the poverty mindset of reading books, getting around people, listening to people that I really respect and that have actually had the success that I want to have. And that's important. Like, I didn't really want to listen to anybody who was, didn't have the results or who didn't have, the type of, lifestyle and character and foundation. I never listened to the person. Like, one of my great mentors now, he is married to his lovely bride. He have 3 beautiful kids. They all live in one household. They work together. And so that is the things I desire. And those are the people that I listen to. Those are the people I strive for. And so you have to understand that. And then you just have to stay diligent and seek those people. And that is, this is one of the reasons for this podcast, because this podcast is the beginning step for a lot of you who want to solve the solution to the poverty mindset. You have to get around the right people. Well, right now it's probably a little hard to be around people, but even if you are, even if it wasn't hard to get around people, it's still something you have to create. So you have to create what you listen to. I'm very, very careful on the first thing I listen to when I get up in the morning. And I want to create my day, and I want to create the environment that's going to help protect my mind, because I know how sensitive my mind can be. And understanding that being around the right people, listen to the right things, is going to be the first step. So this podcast is education. It's for self-awareness. It is for self-education. It is for encouraging you to be more who you're called to be and pulling out the potential of who you can be. And that is why I am so excited about every Friday, because Freedom Friday is something that you get a chance to express yourself. And when you get a chance to express who you are and what you want to be able to do on Fridays, instead of it being a burden day, it's something that you will be excited to look towards. So you are manifesting who and what you want to do. And let's remember, when we go back to psychology, it's the scientific study of the human mind and its function, especially those affecting behaviors in a given context. And another definition here, and this is just looking this up on Google, just to find psychology, it says the mental and emotional factors governing a situation or activity. See, the situation that you're creating yourself on Freedom Friday is something in the future. You creating that. So now you have to develop the mental and the emotional factors that's going to help you get there. Now, guess what? Next week, I'm going to talk about self-awareness, and I'm going to dive into that a little bit more. But just know, that's when a lot of your triggers start to come up. That's when you personally have to dig down deep and start getting better. And the reason you want to get better is because you want to get to that end goal for yourself. And in this case, it's the solution to the poverty mindset. And for you, you have to understand that in order to end the poverty mindset is that you have to start seeing the things you want, have to get around the people that's going to help you get there, and then you have to start taking action. And that's why I tell you, hey, I want you to claim this, and then I want you to buy a shirt, because the shirt is more so of you claiming the freedom that you want for yourself. And it says freedom and health is the new wealth is the shirt. And it's something that my wife came up with, and I just loved it, and I ran with it. And the reason I focus so much on that is because you have to be able to first understand, what do you define as freedom? What I define as freedom, it's up to me. And you cannot get excited from my freedom, but you can get excited from yours. And when you hear what somebody else is doing, then you start saying, oh, that's what it means. And that's why I want, if you have not done a Freedom Friday, if you haven't got a shirt, I want you to be the part of it. It's so simple. Have a website, go buy a shirt, and you take a picture and you send me a video of just basically you saying, what is your Freedom Friday and what are the things that you want to eventually have on a Friday. But this is my solution to ending the poverty mindset. And this is just one aspect of it. The very first one. And let's recap real quick, okay? So first is understanding how it was created. And that was in your raised environment, okay? So when you're in your raised environment and you're focusing on how did this happen, you have to define that, right? Because your raised environment was it was given to you. You didn't have no control over it. And then from there, it's how, then why. And that's that transition before you get to that created environment. It was like, well, no, why were you in this situation? And I told you, as African-American male, the psychology of the people that I grew up with, and I think many African-Americans, is that they were just trying to get by. And when you have that mindset, you're not really looking for that much. You're just looking for just enough. And that's why, you struggle with that poverty mindset. You probably are resembling your mom or your dad and grandma. Not saying they was right or wrong. I'm just saying that is the truth of the matter. And then from there, you have to create your environment. Now, your created environment is something you have to work hard on, because raised environment, we all have one. But your created environment, you constantly have to keep creating. Okay. And so next week, we'll talk about we'll dive into self-awareness. But for now, what I want you to do is, number one, I want you to share this podcast with one person, because my goal is to create that environment, right? Created environment. And when I create an environment of people who come together and just have a cause, and especially, I don't care what color you are, I absolutely would love to bring my African-American community together and start to build upon this so that we can have a stronger mindset and create the environment. That way, when we start talking to our kids, we start talking about how we got here. It's because we work together. And then when we work together, we can do so much better than we do alone. Okay. So share this podcast. Definitely join the Freedom Friday. And listen, I thank you for taking out the time for listening to this podcast. This is something that is very important to me, and something that I feel that is just the beginning of not only educating everyone on what are the things that we need to do to challenge ourselves and draw more potential, but it is also what I believe is the solution to the poverty mindset. And that's just the beginning. Okay. Hey, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please submit them. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. Just type in Jahbari McLennan and What's Your Self-Talk, and you will always find me. And we at the end of another episode, and I'm excited to be able to hear from you. All right. And you know that question I'm going to ask you, what's your self-talk? All right. See you later. Bye.